So we're going to talk about strands thickness. And I can't tell you how important this particular topic is because this is the reason why a lot of people have been dragged falsely. If you don't understand strand thickness, you will not know what you are being sold, especially if you're getting a hair from a particular origin. And if you're sourcing a raw hair, you should ask your supplier where is the hair being sourced from. With that, you'll be able to know what kind of strands thickness that those country have or those regions have. Knowing about hair texture and knowing about strand thickness will save you from a lot of things. Will save you from customers that are not aware. Because if you educate your customer properly of the kind of texture and strand thickness that they're getting, they will know where to rate their hairs. You get that now? So now, talking about strand thickness, there are three levels of strand thickness. They are fine strands, medium strands, and coarse strands. Fine strand has a very thin diameter, and it looks very sleek and is soft. It can shine easily, and this fine strands is also the hair that you can call baby thin hair. It has a very thin strands, very thin and very sleek hair, and this fine strands is commonly found in Philippines and India. This fine strands is really good for straight hairs or wavy units, not really thick wavy but just normal wavy units. It cannot hold coils properly. If you coil it, it drops ASAP. If you coil it, it drops because naturally it is fine. It has thin strands, so it is good for straight. It is good for straight, sleek straight. So the medium strands is actually in the middle. It is not thin, it is not coarse. It is noticeable but not coarse. Medium strands can actually hold coils properly. It can actually be straightened, and this particular strands is majorly found in Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. It is a very good strand, and it is best selling. Like, people love this strands very much. You can, because it is of this versatility, you can actually use it to coil it, you can actually use it to straighten it, you can actually invest in just one hair and use it to achieve different styles. Then the third one is the coarse strands. This one is very strong, thick. It has a very thick and strong diameter, and when straightened it looks very heavy, but actually is really good for coiling units, for bouncy units. If you really want a bouncy unit that can last for you, this particular strand is the nicest. Like, it is very good for bouncy units, very good and very strong. And this particular strand is found in Burma and some regions of India. The reason why I'm setting it like this is because these particular countries that I've mentioned are one of the people that supply their hairs majorly to other people around the world. So they are the major distributors in the hair industry. That does not mean that all these hair textures cannot be found in the other regions of the world. So even if it's in African region, South Asia, Europe, or any place, it's either is mixed. Some countries, they have the mixed texture, like the medium and the coarse. Some they have fine and medium. So it just depends on the region and what they have in their region. Like Vietnam, they have in some places in Vietnam they have fine strands. In some places in Vietnam too, they have the coarse. It depends on where they are sourcing their hair from and where they're sourcing a particular strand thickness from. You understand that? Which is why you need to verify from where they are sourcing the hairs from, so that if you're selling to a customer and telling a customer that you are selling a raw hair, you should be aware or know what exactly is the strand thickness of that hair, if it can be versatile or if it can just be for a certain strand of for a certain type of coils or a certain kind of style. We cannot talk about strand thickness and not talk about cuticles and density. So I'll recap on what strand thickness means and the three levels of strand thickness. Strand thickness is how thick or thin an individual strands is. How thick or thin an individual strands is. And I told you guys that there are three levels of strand thickness, which are the fine strands, medium strands, and coarse strands. The fine strands, medium strands, and coarse strands. Now I'll be talking about cuticles. And what are cuticles? Cuticle is the outermost layer of the hair strands, and mind you that cuticle is not what just makes a full strands. There are three layers of hair strands, or there are three layers in the hair strands, which are the cuticle, the cortex, and the medulla. So cuticle is not what makes up the hair strands. Cuticle is just what covers the outer layer of the hair strands, which is, well, as I explained or as I defined. So inside this cuticle, there is what we call the cortex cell, the cortex and the medulla. And this medulla is not always found in all hairs, and a hair can actually be healthy and safe without a medulla. What is most important is the cortex, and what is inside the cortex is the cortex cell. The cuticle controls the cortex, like I said. It also controls moisture movement and also controls shine, tangling, and smoothness. That is what the cuticle does. But every other thing, it is in the cortex. So what makes the 90% or 80% of a hair strand is the cortex, not the cuticle. You might ask yourself what is inside the cortex. There are actually things that is inside the cortex that makes the strands a strands. One is the keratin chain. This is what causes or makes the hair to be elastic or in shape. This also has long protein chain. The next is the bond. This bond is what makes the shape, is what makes it determine or what decides if it is a straight hair or a curly hair, and this is what holds the keratin chain together. The third is the melanin. This is a pigment that decides if the hair can be black or lighter. There are two major types of melanin. They are the eumelanin and the pheomelanin. So this is what determines the hair color, and also this is what bleach attacks. When bleach attacks this cuticle, it goes straight to this melanin or eumelanin, the pigments in the hair, and determines if it is going to be lighter or it's going to be darker. So it's this cortex now that does like the major work. You understand? So it's this cortex that holds color, determines elasticity, that determines coil pattern, and also the strength of the hair. If this cortex lose strength or fails, the hair has spot. The hair can hold strength. The cortex can actually strip, but if the cuticles can actually strip, but if the cortex is affected, that is when you know that the hair is damaged. So the third is medulla. Medulla is not really common or necessary for this our hair topic because it's actually we that we're talking about, not the hair going on somebody's head. But I'll just explain what's common about medulla. This medulla. Medulla is not really found in fine hairs like baby thin hairs. Medulla is not found in baby thin hair. Medulla is majorly found in coarse hair because it has bigger cortex. You get that? So the thickness of a hair does not really mean that the cuticles are thick. The thickness of the hair is how big the cortex is. So I told you before that 90% or 80% of a hair strands is what is filled with cortex, not cuticles. So is the cuticles that is protecting the cortex. So why this whole thing is necessary? In fact, everything about hair is actually necessary. You need to understand it in order for you to know what exactly you are doing. So baby thin hairs or fine hairs has small cortex, and as it has small cortex, it has less pigments, which is easy to lift. That is just it. Then coarse hair has more cortex and more pigments, has larger cortex and more pigments, which is harder to lift. Then the cuticle is what controls the penetration. The cuticle compactness is what controls the penetration and the longevity of the hair. So if the cuticle eventually damages and then your cortex is left naked like that, the hair is going to. That is just it. That is everything. If you just understand this whole thing I've talked about now, you will know that bleaching is not always a good thing. Your hair undergoing heat a lot of the times, no matter the amount you bought that hair, if your hair undergoes heat, bleaching baths and different things, a lot of chemicals every time, your hair just damages.